Buenas tardes a todos nuestros compatriotas.
Good afternoon to all our fellow compatriots of Latin America and the Caribbean, the governments and the peoples of the Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of Our America. This wonderful alliance that 21 years ago was born in the hands of two immortal giants, eternal and always alive, Fidel Castro Ruz and Hugo Rafael Chavez Frias. Warriors, commanders, a permanent example of resistance, optimism, and victory. They succeeded in all the tests, and they gave us a path for us to go down that path alongside our peoples. Today, in 2025, 14th December, solidarity greetings from the Presidential Palace of the people from Caracas, Venezuela. As Havana, Cuba radio used to say, free territory of the Americas. Greetings to all our friends following us through the social media. We are making sure that this could be followed in the two languages and also through Telesur, the multi-platform of the peoples and the multi-platform of truth, another accomplishment of ALBA. And we have commemorated its 20th anniversary, and we are carrying out new projects to strengthen Telesur as a multi-platform of the peoples of the South. So we are broadcasting this summit of the 21 years of ALBA from Caracas, from a very iconic hall, the Boyacá battle victory. And it is presided over by the painting by a beloved artist, Gabriel Bracho. And this painting summarizes this huge victory, 1819. There we see from the plains in the south, close to the Guayana, the founding of Great Colombia and the people in arms, the army around the whole of our America. And we should just imagine all the battles and the various trajectories where pious soldiers to the Pisba mountain, 4,500 meters, covered by snow, where Bolivar lost half of his soldiers, frozen in this mountain, and he arrived to the back. And in Pantano de Vargas, in the Battle of Boyacá, we see represented the United Army of the Liberation, guided by Simon Bolivar. And this army crushed the most powerful empire in our region, the Battle of Boyacá. And that Colombia was born in this fashion. The historical project was born in this fashion, and this project is inherited directly by ALBA. We are the inheritors of this project. We are Colombia, the greater Colombia of the 21st century. We are the great project of unity, emancipation, liberation, a multidimensional project of our peoples. At a time of wonderful challenges, and I would like to send greetings to all the brothers and sisters of the Caribbean region. Greetings to Díaz-Canel, the Cuba government, and also to greet the people of Cuba. We want to extend these greetings to Raúl, the giant Raúl Castro Ruz, with his wonderful strength, the strength of the people of Fidel, the people of Augusto César Sandino, the general of men and women free men and women, the general of peoples, and co-presidents Daniel Ortega and Rosario Murillo. Also, greetings to the government of Dominica, St. Lucia, Antigua and Barbuda, St. Kitts and Nevis, Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. This summit is held in the midst of a very dynamic juncture, intense situation. I always tell to the Venezuelan people, since, as you know, I'm a man of God, a man of faith, Christians from Christ, the original Christianity from the catacombs, Christ of the poor, walking shoeless, accompanying the fishermen, the one who resuscitated Lazarus, Christian from the deep Christianity of the humble, of the poor, the anti-imperialist Christian. As Hugo Chavez said, so often our Father, our Master, Christ, the precursor of socialism. That is why our socialism is a Christian socialism. Blessed, as you say in Nicaragua. And we always should thank God and thank life of living this stellar moment. And we need to deal with the stellar moment in order to set the example on how we defend the right of our peoples to have a homeland, to defend our right to peace, to defend international law faced with the abuses of imperialism, to preserve stability and the right to social, economic, and multidimensional development of our peoples. And we need to be thankful for this opportunity. We always should be thankful because life gives us the possibility to be at the forefront of this battle, to defend what we have of most wonderful, namely our homeland, especially the greater homeland, based on the concept of Bolivar. Bolivar said to us, the homeland is America, is the America, or Marty, when he explained the concept of our America, the one gathering in order to defend peace, justice. We have worked on a number of proposals in order to denounce very firmly the violation of international law, to ratify in a very clear-cut manner the 2014 SELAC Declaration in Havana of Latin America and the Caribbean as a territory of peace, which is a declaration, a lawful declaration that generates jurisprudence. Latin America and the Caribbean, a territory of peace. And this was approved by all the member states of this region who raised their hands in favor of this declaration in January 2014 in Havana, Cuba, under the chairmanship of the General of Armies, Raúl Castro Ruz. Those moments were unforgettable. So this is a summit whose purpose is to continue coordinating all the steps for them, dear brothers and sisters, to translate into concrete results in the fields of the economy, health, education, infrastructure, public works, science, technology. A year ago, time flies. A year ago, we were gathering here to commemorate the 20th anniversary of ALBA. However, as I said, time flies. But a year ago, exactly, we were meeting also for another commemoration. And this year has been an extraordinary year for ALBA. We've been working together, jointly, planning, but also acting. This year started with a new dynamism of our commerce through the ALBA ship. The first, more than 20,000 tons of various products have been mobilized so far, and it is an example of a future fleet that we're going to have. Unite our naval fleet so trade can flow in the Caribbean region. So we have all the goods and services our countries need. This was a proposal, and now we are consolidating this proposal. Regarding tourism, well, important tourist packages enabling us to connect us with countries beyond ALBA, but also within ALBA, which is also a task enabling economic development and the more efficacious use and efficient use of resources. If you see the potentials and tourist capabilities of the region, they are huge. It is a jewel of the world. ALBA countries, from the tourist perspective, are huge power, and we need to speed up this process so the appropriate agencies should move forward quicker in this field. Now, regarding hydrocarbons, we need to recover Petrocaribe. It's a major task, as we decided a year ago. So to invest together and produce all the hydrocarbons products, oil, but also we need to refine and use also these products for petrochemical purposes. So these are projects that have been very, very well designed. However, it goes slower than needs appear, but we need to keep on working on this. But also we have AgroAlba, which is ALBA Food. ALBA Food. We say in Venezuela, the food, the daily meals, right? People need to eat. And people say, well, is the food served? Is the food there? Because food is essential for people. We need to ensure the supply of food for everybody. So the basic logistics is there. The legal framework is there. The scientific and productive project and perspective, they are there. But then it's time to produce. To produce what? Beans, meat, rice, milk, chicken, all what we need for this to occur, potatoes, etc. So for this, as we people say in Havana in 96, I heard that expression. You need to do what it's had to do. Ponte pa la cosa. You need to put hands. You need to start working. We need to start producing with brigades in our countries, hands on. We have a large agricultural frontier of close to 40 millions of hectares. We are receiving investment from Asia, but we have already defined what are the lands to be used for the various projects. Now, Mr. Hill, Mr. Rander Peña, Raul Lee, Alfred Nazaret. Now, time has come to truly decide and define the plans to start producing the first potato. We are going to produce one potato, and tomorrow two. You're going to start producing the first grain of rice, and then you will produce millions of tons, maize, etc. So 2025 has been able to show us clearly what is the plan for next year. So next year, we need to go hands-on to start producing what we have already planned. So these are the major ideas, but we have major accomplishments inherited by our great leaders, Miracle Mission, the family, the doctors in the communities, the family doctors, thanks to the support of the revolutionary Cuba. In each neighborhood I go, the Escanel, I visit all the neighborhoods, and I see you as well, always visiting all the various regions in Cuba. Well, all neighborhood we visit, we see people from Santa Clara, Centro Habana. It's just wonderful to see these doctors coming from Cuba, because Cuba does not have armies to aggress. They have a army of white coats to give love, to give health to the peoples. And we have benefited from this widely. It's in the field of health as well.
We need to keep moving forward in our agenda for construction, for an offense. So, in these circumstances that Venezuela has been living for 25 weeks of aggression, of psychological terrorism, of military threats, of piracy, assault and kidnapping of a vessel with Venezuelan crude oil, which we just saw a few days ago, a complete breach of the legal and diplomatic ways of coexistence in our greater region of the Latin American and Caribbean hemisphere. We have adjusted, we have perfected our vision of the system of national defense. We had learned from our forefathers, the great Guaycaipuro chief and the indigenous Caribe resistance, taken from his experience of 100 years, a very successful resistance, impressively so. So much so that their names have transcended time. If you go to any region here at the east, you see Jurima map. If you go to Zulia, Jinigales map. If you go to La Guaira, Naiguatá, Maiquetía. If you come here to the mountains of Caracas and the Miranda sector, you find Guaycaipuro, our chief of chiefs, and Urquía, his wife, the Baruta chief, the Chacao chief. All of their names have transcended, even though they were massacred. Their example has lived on, and it is feeding us today from all of those struggles, their struggles of resistance, the Afro-Venezuelan struggles, the fight for the emancipation of our America, with Bolivar and Sucre at the forefront, with the fight of the general of the sovereign people, the General Zamora. We just remembered his victory in the Santa Ynez battle. Ezequiel Zamora, Commander Chavez used to compare him so that people would understand the dimension of his name. He was more or less like our Emiliano Zapata, like our Pancho Villa. From the country, he built a peasants' army and they defeated the oligarchies. So taking all of that, we built our military and national constitutional doctrine of national defense with two lines. And the first one was prolonged, active, and created popular resistance. And we could talk a lot about that. But the second line is key, which is a permanent offensive to take the initiative in every area. Because life is multifaceted. The reality of a country is multifaceted. So we need to take permanent initiative in every area, in the area of economy, production, science, technology, healthcare, people's power, to strengthen our democracy in our territory, in the military field, in the police field, in internal security field, in the permanent fight against criminal groups, against drug trafficking, etc. So, by bringing this very elaborate doctrine based on military science and arts, I would say that we have to combine this, the people's prolonged resistance of the ALBA peoples with the permanent offensive for the construction of peace, because we need to consolidate our rights, our right to education, our right to healthcare, and the social rights of our people with a high content of Latin American unity based on our liberators. We always repeat this here, brothers and sisters, before giving the floor to all of you, dear comrades from Latin America and the Caribbean. We always bring up the great José Gervasio Artigas, one of the liberators of the South, of the Eastern Band of Uruguay, when he said all the time, we should not wait anything but from ourselves. And with the same line of thinking, we can also find a proclamation from Bolivar of March 27 of 1821, when the path was being defined between negotiating with Spain of the Cadiz courts, and of course their proposal was to join Spain as a republic. And some people were supporting that in the midst of the war. And other people would say, no, we should follow our own path. We should not look for any shortcuts, as the Cuban song says, I think. Do not abandon the path because you're taking the shortcoming. We have our path. It was left by our giants, Fidel and Chavez, Bolivar and Martí. And so Bolivar proclaimed this only 3 months after the Carabobo battle. And listen to this, it is fully valid today.
La prudencia, Bolívar, comillas.
This is what Bolivar said, and I quote, Prudence
que no
advises
esperemos nada de España,
that we should not expect anything from Spain, from the Spanish Empire,
ni fiemos nuestra suerte,
nor trust
sino a nuestras fuerzas.
our luck, but
Simón
in
Bolívar,
our
27
forces.
de marzo de
This was on
1821.
March 27, 1821.
Pero mucho antes,
But
Francisco de Miranda,
long before, Francisco de
un
Miranda,
gigante que creó el concepto de
another giant who
Colombia,
created the concept of
él
Colombia,
hablaba de que había que montar un
he said
incanato
that we needed
tomando las
to have
instituciones del Estado
a
Inca,
unity taking the different
estando todavía en
institutions of the
Londres,
Inca states.
mucho antes de
And he
regresar a
was
Venezuela,
still in London
el 20 de
long
abril de
before returning to
1809,
Venezuela on April 20,
escribiéndole
1809.
a Francisco Febles,
He wrote to Francisco
un
Febles,
independentista que estaba en Trinidad
an
y Tobago,
independentist who was in
hermana
Trinidad and
Trinidad y
Tobago,
le
our sister
escribió en
nation, and
1809,
he
compañero,
wrote in 1809.
compañera, voy hablando lento para que puedan hacer la traducción, ¿verdad?
I'm trying to speak
Escribió,
slowly.
comillas,
So he wrote, and I quote,
si la América por
if
sí mismo
America
no
by
se hace
itself
independiente,
cannot become
establece su
independent
libertad
and
con la
establishes
ayuda de
its
sus
freedom
propios hijos,
with the help of its own children,
los europeos, y
Europeans,
mucho menos las potencias
and much
extranjeras,
less the foreign powers,
nunca harán esfuerzos
will never
por su
make
felicidad.
any efforts for
Francisco de
its
Miranda,
happiness. End of
1809.
quote. Francisco de Miranda in 1809.
Diría aquí alguien en el estado Lara, Naguará.
Someone here would say,
Confiemos en
Naguará,
nuestro
look at that.
esfuerzo.
So we should trust our
Tenemos
own
un
efforts.
cerebro, dos
We
ojos,
have a brain,
oídos,
2 eyes, 2
brazos,
ears,
piernas,
2 arms,
inteligencia,
2 legs. We have
historia,
intelligence,
sabiduría.
we have history, we have
Nada nos falta
wisdom.
para ser libres e
We don't need
independientes
anything
y
to be
ganar por el
free and
camino que tengamos que
independent
ganar la
and
paz
win
perpetua
however
en
we
toda
are
nuestra
going to
región
win the
con
perpetual
desarrollo, con
peace
estabilidad
of our
y
region
enfrentar
with
los problemas y
development,
solucionarlos
stability,
unidos siempre.
facing our
Unir,
problems always united.
unir los pequeños recursos que tengamos, unámonos.
We need to
Los
pool
grandes recursos que tengamos, unámonos.
the
Los que
resources that we
tengamos,
have, big
unámonos.
or small, whatever we have,
Para avanzar
we need to
juntos
pull it
en
together
esta
so
hora
that we move
estelar de nuestra
forward
América
together
hacia
in this
una
stellar time
independencia
of our
que brille,
America
que
toward
sea
a
vista por el
shining
mundo entero.
independence that is going to be seen
Hace
all throughout the
21 años
world.
nació
21 years
el
ago,
ALBA
ALBA was born
como respuesta
as a
al
response
intento de colonizar
to the
con el
attempt
ALCA
of
toda nuestra
colonizing
economía.
with ALCA all of our economy.
El neoliberalismo fue derrotado.
Neoliberalism was defeated by the peoples of Latin America and the Caribbean, but ALBA was a great engine, a great drive of the unity and the struggle to defeat that threat. And 21 years later, they want to create a new colonizing project, not only against America now, I think it is against the whole world, and we know that. But here in Latin America and the Caribbean, the colonizing project will not pass. We will be free. All of our peoples should be free. And with the experience that we have and the love that moves us, we will go step by step, uniting ourselves more and more in action with concrete results, the capabilities of our countries. Our dynamic needs to move toward unity, the internal unity of our countries, the unity of our vanguards. The dynamic needs to move towards the unity of our peoples. Its articulation. We need unity for emancipation permanently in every field. We need mind emancipation, cultural emancipation, political, economic emancipation. This is our path. We have found it, and we need to continue to walk through this path, demanding much more from ourselves with concrete results. And this is what I say to our executive secretary, Rander Peña. We need to demand more from our own teams, beyond the beautiful documents and the declarations that we write and publish. We need to go and produce potato, meats, milk, chicken, eggs, corn. We need to start producing more oil, gasoline, gas. We need to develop tourism. We need different teams with you, executive secretariat, at the forefront, in the field where we produce, where we resolve our problems, so that all of these beautiful documents, which are very well designed projects with a very clear doctrine, which are state of the art in the world, and they are also a hope for everyone. They need to become results so that the phrase of Jose Marti becomes a reality. What was that phrase that Jose Marti said? The best way to say is to do. Let us say by doing, and let us do by saying. But we need to make it real. Needs to go from theory to practice so that we can move forward. We have great energy because this 2025 has been extraordinary. Let the empires do whatever they want, and we will do what we have to do every single day, so that you can see the wonderful results of the present and the future that we have for our countries. It is going to be the way in this year of the centennial. It's going to be the way to honor the giant of giants, the father of all revolutionaries of the 20th and 21st century, the great commander Fidel Castro Ruz. The first 100 years are coming. 100 years of life. He's more alive than ever today in his example, in his vision, in his guidelines, in the humbleness of his character, in his intelligence, in his way to teach us, in the way he educated all of us to make us in Latin America full of dignity, the beacon of light that is still on 90 miles away from the United States, when everything came crumbling down in the ancient models of the Soviet Union and others. This beacon of light is still on. And why? Because it still had the power, it still had the people, it still had a project. It called to the battle of culture and ideas, and we were winning that battle together, and we will continue to do so. So, welcome once again to this summit in the 21st anniversary of the Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of Our America. Very special greetings and congratulations on behalf of ALBA to the first Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Godwin Friday from the First Democratic Party, the Foreign Minister, Dwight Bramble, for his recent victory, and as well in St. Lucia, the resounding triumph of our dear brother, Philip J. Pierre, with the Labour Party. So we continue in battle and we continue in victory. So now we are going to proceed to give the floor to our brother, presidents of the Cuba of resistance, rebelliousness, and love. This week, they also obtained a recognition as a universal value. How do you call it, a UNESCO? Immaterial and cultural heritage of humanity. Well, let us get ready for Cuba. You have the floor, dear President Díaz-Canel. Thank you, dear President and brother of the sister nation, Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. First of all, I would like to say that we embrace and we support all of these ideas and reflections that you have shared with us as an introduction after this historical summit of ALBA. Dear Commander Daniel Ortega Saavedra, co-president of the sister nation Nicaragua, and Rosario Murillo, also co-president of Nicaragua. Dear Prime Ministers of the sister nations of the Caribbean, Roosevelt J. Skerritt from Dominica, Philip J. Pierre from St. Lucia. Dear Ministers of Foreign Affairs of the countries, the member countries of ALBA. Dear Rander Peña, Executive Secretary of ALBA-TCP, heads of delegation and representatives of the nations that integrate our alliance, guests, and participants. First of all, I would like to convey a message of solidarity and support to the nations of the area that, as Cuba, were affected by Hurricane Melissa and still today are facing the scourge of such a destructive natural phenomenon. And I would also like to draw attention on the issue of climate change. Climate change is not a conspiracy theory. It is not a plan of the left to generate states of opinion, as some people try to prove. Climate change is a reality, and the examples that we have in the region and throughout the world demonstrate this. The time that the peoples and nations have to reach the point of no return is smaller and smaller. Therefore, if we continue on the path of consumerism and irrationality, the human species is condemned to perish. Dear heads of state and government, dear brothers and sisters, Latin America and the Caribbean is a wonderful and diverse world that we call our America, that is facing threats that have been unprecedented in the last decades. The Monroe Doctrine is not hidden in the imperial appetite. On the contrary, it is shamelessly displayed as over a century ago through the diplomacy of the gunboats. As in the neocolonial past, imperialism believes it has the power to impose itself by force on the independence and the right to the self-determination of the nations of the hemisphere. It assumes without moderation authorities and prerogatives it doesn't have to threaten with the use of force everything that inhabitates in which they call their backyard. The renewed imperialist pretensions of the Monroe Doctrine are shown constantly in the announcements and the threatening actions against Venezuela as a prelude of what will become such an irresponsible and risky assault, a new corollary, heir to the Roosevelt corollary. Now we have the Trump corollary. The policy of the gunboats with their criminal dossier of aggressions against the peoples is the past of the region. We cannot allow that it becomes the future. The new strategy of national security of the United States of the past November includes an even more aggressive and offensive approach to that very dangerous doctrine. Latin America and the Caribbean is not the backyard, not even the front yard of anyone. We are sovereign states. The resources, the natural resources of our nations belong to our peoples as an inalienable patrimony that no country as powerful as they are cannot claim or even desire. Only each nation has the right to dispose on those resources in the way that it understands according to its sovereign rights, with due respect and consideration to the natural and ecologic balance of the planet, free from interventions and hegemonic pretensions of any other country. The naval, exaggerated, and unjustified naval display in the Caribbean Sea and the deliberate threat of military aggression against the Bolivarian nation reveals a hegemonic and criminal purpose that must alert all of the peoples and countries of the continent. It is a danger that must be denounced determinedly. And from Cuba, here in this ALBA summit, we condemn it in the firmest and categorical terms. We also denounce the recent assault and seizing of an oil tanker by the military US forces that shows the real intentions of this display. We energically condemn these terrible acts of piracy and theft of the resources of the Venezuelan people, which is a violation of international law. It is against the principles of freedom of navigation and free trade, and damages not only Venezuela, but the international community as a whole. We are before the new corsaries and pirates of the Caribbean. The American government must know that nobody believes the false pretext that they mentioned, they used to threaten Venezuela. They talked about drug trafficking and the display of military vessels and the discriminate murders that have been committed.
They are not trying to put an end to the narcotics or consumption of narcotics in the United States, but they don't care. They trust that can generate the fear among popular people, populations, and the leaders of the region. It will be a mistake and will be betray more than 200 years of a struggle for independence of our America if the Latin American Caribbean governments stop confronting strongly the recent hegemonic policy deployed by the United States. We reaffirm the Declaration of Latin America and the Caribbean as the Zone of Peace, adopted, as you said, in January 2014 during the second summit of CELAC in Havana. The defense of this doctrine is a priority and an obligation vis-à-vis our peoples. We reiterate the importance of respectful and civilized dialogue for the peaceful resolution of conflicts, controversies, and differences. We condemn the use or threat of use of violence to achieve interests in clear violation of the Charter of the United Nations and international law. We reiterate once again the strongest support to the Chavista and Bolivarian revolution and Nicolas Maduro Moros, who are determined to defend, regardless of any sacrifice, the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela that has given us many examples of courage and victory vis-à-vis the adversities with Bolivar, Sucre, and Hugo Chavez Frias. Dear heads of state and government, friends of ALBA, true Latin American and Caribbean integration will be extremely difficult if we continue accepting the exclusions and decisions in various international fora, like the Conference of the America that failed this year. The decision to exclude Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua responded clearly to the directive of the US administration. Regrettably, some countries of the region accepted this decision, turning their back to virtue and dignity and respect among peoples. Exclusions are against multilateralism and the principle of sovereign equality of states and vis-à-vis international law. They use intimidation, blackmail, and the threat and use of force as a method of coercion against independent and sovereign states. Imperialism and national oligarchies of the countries of the region, they bet on the idea of divide and prevail, and they try to promote conflicts between nations of the region and to undermine the effort for strengthening consolidation of mechanism of regional independent consultation methods among our nations. They want to destroy or undermine the rise of sovereign governments implementing social policies and could become adversaries of the destructive capitalism and a US hegemony. They will be the main obstacles to appropriate these resources of the nation by large multinationals that serve capital. the United States in the desire to destroy progressive governments in the region and showing the idea of supremacy, trying to meddle with electoral processes to impose right-wing candidates close to their desires and plans. This was clearly demonstrated in Honduras, where we saw the intervention of the United States to prevent the Honduran people to elect their government in a free and sovereign manner. Another expression is the application of the unilateral coercive measures against countries that are not in tune with the decision of the United States and Western countries. These not only damage clearly the sovereignty and the independence of state, but also undermine the principle of no intervention in the internal affairs and hindered the efforts of these countries to promote the legitimate development of their people. We therefore demand the stop of this UCM, a demand that has been historically supported by the international community. It has been reflected in resolutions of the UNGA and the Council of Human Rights, as well as in the decisions of the Non-Aligned Movement Group of 77 in China and the Group of Friends in defense of the UN Charter. As you know, Cuba, for more than 60 years, has gone through a brutal commercial financial blockade imposed by the US administration, the most severe measure of UCMs ever implemented to any nation in the world. The effect of this block impact in all levels of society. No Cuban family is exempted from this. The lack of food and medicine, the blackouts, the difficulty to obtain fuel in international market, and the impossibility to make repairs and maintenance work in the electrical system are some of the consequences that we confront in Cuba because of this UCM. Since 2019, the blockade against Cuba has attained extreme levels and has become more cruel and inhuman. Consequences have intensified with the arbitrary inclusion of Cuba in the list of the State Department on countries that so-called support terrorism. After the recent visit to the country and seeing the reality of the situation in Cuba, the experts on UCM and the impacts on the enjoyment of human rights by nations called on the United States to suspend all the UCMs applied against Cuba. We like to thank countries who have supported and continue to support the demand for the genocide and blockade against Cuba be stopped. The Cuban people, heir of our heroes and martyrs, and truthful to the teachings of Cuba, of Fidel and Raul, has demonstrated the will to struggle against these imperial maneuvers and to defend the freedom and sovereignty of the homeland. Dear heads of state and government, dear friends, all, in a very adverse and dangerous context, it is essential in order to have our own path, to get inspiration from the founding of ALBA. We are commemorating 21 years of the creation of this body by Commander Raúl Castro Ruz and Fidel Castro and Hugo Chavez, two giants who continued with the work of Marty and Simon Bolivar to attain the true integration of the peoples of our America. As Commander Chavez said, and I quote, ALBA is the beginning, is the dawn of a new era, of a new mechanism of cooperation. This cooperation is not market, it's not competition, it is complementarity, solidarity, is to put the human being at the center, the social affairs at the center and not the market. Recently, as an expression of these convictions, we commemorated 20th anniversary since in Mar del Plata, our people's buried FTAA, an abomination that tried to subdue the countries of the region and to lead to a new stage of colonization. Today, history is inviting us to become those who bury this domination by the United States that is hovering over the region, inspired in examples of Hugo Chavez, whose legacy reminds us that despite hostile circumstances, victory is still possible. His struggle guides us as a ray that is illuminating a darkest night. We remember today the crucial role played by Commander Fidel Castro Russo to demonstrate that integration is possible and cannot be postponed through innovative mechanisms such as the Treaty of the Peoples, Yo Si Puedo, and Miracle Missile. These programs have been extraordinary, and they made possible for millions of people to learn to write and read, to regain their sight, and to improve their communities, and to improve the life conditions of many people. So today, we're going to do this in the midst of huge challenges with fresh projects to strengthen the alliance and to contribute to the well-being of peoples on the basis of the 2030 strategic agenda that was approved in Caracas in 2024. These are the cases of AgroAlba in order to foster investment to develop agricultural and productive sectors in each one of our countries, as well as ALBA Blue in order to develop our fishing aquifers capacities of the member countries. Both projects are being implemented in Cuba, and we are fully committed with the success of these projects. To this, we need to add the ALBA vessel already facilitating commerce between our nations. We have received in Cuban harbors very recently with the assistance provided by Venezuela to the families affected by the Melissa hurricane. Brother Maduro, brothers and sisters, our heartfelt gratitude. To continue moving forward in attaining these objectives and many others, we have a permanent reference in Fidel, who, with his will and revolutionary example, from the very start of our alliance, filled us with the anti-imperialist force, the defense of the self-determination of peoples, and as Raúl also, the conviction that it is possible. His vision was not limited to the economic realm. He understood the need to have a true battle of ideas to develop cultural and educational projects to promote unity in diversity and the formation of a Latin American and Caribbean consciousness. We need to remember these leaders based in solidarity, complementarity. At this date of when we commemorate its birth date, it's the best homage we can pay to this statesman, as a universal statement, as Fidel. The fact that ALBA is meeting today is a clear example of fidelity to those principles, the founders, Fidel and Chavez, and the inspiring forces such as Martí and Bolivar. The desire of our enemies will never undermine the unity of our peoples. They will not be able to subdue with the threats and aggressions the will of struggle or the faith in victory. ALBA will continue being an essential space of solidarity and worthy resistance vis-a-vis the destabilizing forces, the pressure measures, and the various type of aggressions. And trusting the principles of Fidel, Chavez, we will continue battling for a single objective: unity, peace, and sovereignty of our peoples. To victory forever. Thank you very much, Maduro.
Venceremos.
We will prevail.
Victory forever. Bueno, muchas gracias, compañero.
Thank you very much, brother President of our sisterly nation, Cuba, Díaz Mario Díaz-Canel, to Raúl, to the revolution, the Cuban Revolution as a whole. You have raised crucial issues, and those issues should be premised on action. Rander was saying that he tomorrow is going to grow potatoes in Merida region. That is a true Secretary General. He has to produce. It's hands-on. We need to produce in order to prevail. The Montreux Doctrine
imperialista,
is an imperialist, is an old doctrine. And this doctrine does not enjoy the support of anyone in the United States or in the Caribbean and Latin America, and not even in the United States. During the first American Revolution in the North against domination, well, they erased this Monroe Doctrine from the public speech in the United States. However, since the rise of this Monroe Doctrine, the doctrine that enabled to light on the light and to dominate us, the first one to decide to fight this doctrine was always Bolivar. Monroe versus Bolivar, and the giant Bolivar with his victorious sword. Because the Bolivarian doctrine is a Republican doctrine. And let me tell to the United States people of the United States, listen to me, pay attention to what I'm going to say. If there is a true Republican doctrine, is Simón Antonio de la Santísima Trinidad Bolívar Palioso Aponte doctrine. That's a true Republican doctrine in order to create states fully sovereign, to respect the self-determination of the peoples, to search for unity, premised on the respect on diversity, for the emancipation of peoples. The doctrine of Bolivar in the quest for peace, not threats of the use of force or military threats, not to address missiles towards people to threaten them. So Bolivar versus Monroe, who's going to win? Bolivar has always prevailed. So victory forever. Bolivar versus Monroe, and that's the truth. With Bolivar, we can all prevail. With Bolivar, we can also be on the right side of history. That's the truth. I'm going to give the floor now to the president of our sisterly nation of Nicaragua, always blessed, always Christian, always free. And when President Díaz-Canel was speaking, I took my book that never abandons me. Here we have the letters of Bolivar with the title is True People Always Overcome Aggressions. And here we have the exchange of letters between Bolivar and Irving when in 1918 there was an intense controversy. He was already president of the new nation of Colombia, and they met in the Orinoco River, and there was an exchange there. This agent was sent by United States to deal with a number of illegal matters. The United States sent two ships fully armed to assist the Spaniards. And when they reached the Orinoco River, well, the Venezuelan army took these ships, and this Irving agent was threatening Bolivar, and then Bolivar was very firm but diplomatic approach. He was not going to be fooled by this envoy and by the gunboat diplomacy. And vis-a-vis, faced with this position of violence and threat, Bolivar said this to envoy, our great liberator. He said, and I quote, I will not enable that you insult and despise the rights of Venezuela. Defending these rights against Spain, a large part of our population has disappeared, but the rest, they are yearning to have the same fate. The same thing is to Venezuela, to fight Spain or to fight the whole world in case the whole world decide to offend us. It's in October 1818. So this was one of the clear expressions of Bolivar among the various decrees. And later in October 12, 1818, he said,
something extraordinary. Dear Nicaragua, and I quote, the value and skill, Mr. Agent Irving, replace with advantage number. Unhappy are the men if these moral virtues do not balance and even surpass the physical ones. The master of the most populated kingdom, we may say the master of the most powerful kingdom today, would be soon the lord of all the land. Fortunately, we have seen very frequently a bunch of free men defeat powerful empires. And fortunately, we saw in Nicaragua a group of free men with Augusto César Sandino defeat the most powerful empire in their sacred history. So we give the floor to the heir of the legacy of Augusto César Sandino, co-president Daniel Ortega. He is with our sister, co-president Rosario Murillo. You have the floor.
¿Qué tal, Nicolás?
Hello, Nicolás.
Ahí con el pueblo, marchando.
We have seen you with the people,
Adelante.
always ahead with your people.
Es cierto que enfrentamos
It is true
a lo largo de nuestra historia
that all throughout our history,
enemigos poderosos
we have faced powerful enemies
que parecieran invencibles.
that seemed invincible.
Estos enemigos poderosos
These powerful enemies
se logran vencer, se logran derrotar
are
con
defeated
firmeza, con valor,
with strength, with courage,
dejar de caminar.
without
Ya le decía
leaving our path.
el Quijote a Sancho,
The Quixote said to Sancho,
perros ladraban
when the dogs
y querían morder,
bark and want to bite,
se preocupaba. Y
and Sancho was very worried. He was scared. And the Quixote would say,
no le hagas caso. Sancho,
don't pay mind, Sancho.
si ladran,
If they bark,
porque caminamos.
it's because we are walking.
Ellos quieren paralizar a los
They
pueblos
want to paralyze the peoples with threats,
con
with
mordidas.
barks, with bites.
O sea, las sanciones son mordidas,
Sanctions are like bites.
morder a los pueblos
They want to bite the peoples, to terrify them.
Realmente el
And really,
aporte
the contribution
a lo largo de la historia
all throughout our history
de la gesta libertadora
of the liberating
por
struggle
Bolívar
led by Bolivar
tuvo impacto en toda
had an impact all across America.
y dio lugar
And
que
then gave rise
a partir de las derrotas sufridas por
to the fact that after the defeats of the Spanish Empire,
lograrse la
we were able
independencia de Centro
to achieve the independence of Central America from that Spanish Empire.
y en esos momentos también
And
hubieron quienes
at the time,
querían anexar
there were some people who wanted to annex
que había declarado la independencia, la querían
that
anexar
Central America that declared independence
que estaba entronizado todavía en
to
México.
the empire that still existed in Mexico.
Eso no pasó.
But that did not happen.
Eso no pasó. Y ya a los pocos años de la
Then,
independencia,
a few years after the independence of Central America,
donde los países centroamericanos
in which the Central American countries
decretaron la abolición del esclavismo,
decreed the abolition of slavery,
un esclavista de los Estados Unidos,
there was an American slavist,
William Walker,
William Walker.
invadió nuestro territorio
He invaded our territory.
y esto tenía que ver
And this was related
el plan del Yankee
to the Yankee plan
de apoderarse de Nicaragua,
to take hold of Nicaragua,
apoderarse de Centroamérica,
then take hold of Central America,
apoderándose de Centroamérica,
then
apoderarse de
after
México,
take hold of Mexico, and then
los mismos Estados Unidos,
go even
tomar
over the United
la
States
zona
to try and recover the area
que había logrado
of the United
derrotar
States that managed
en la guerra
to defeat
entre el norte y el sur,
in that war between the North and the South, had defeated the South
que defendía la esclavitud.
that was defending slavery.
Y Walker
And
llegó a
Walker
Nicaragua con
arrived
fuerza
to Nicaragua
de militares
with a military force.
encabezada por un coronel, el coronel Byron Cole,
It was led by Colonel Byron Core.
moderno,
They had
que no
modern
tenían
weapons,
los ejércitos centroamericanos,
which of course the Central American armies did not have, nor the Nicaraguan army.
y valiéndose de las actitudes
And so making use
vendepatria de una
of
de las
the
fuerzas políticas
servile
que se
attitude
encontraba
of the
en
political
contradicción con otra
forces
fuerza política
that
en
was in
Nicaragua,
contradiction with another political force in Nicaragua.
la fuerza política le dio la entrada a Walker,
That
invitó a
political
Walker
force
a llegar para ayudar
welcomed Walker into the country
a Nicaragua.
to try and defend Nicaragua.
A cambio,
And in exchange,
a una empresa norteamericana,
they would guarantee that an American company
Vanderbilt,
that belonged to Cornelius Vanderbilt,
libre tránsito,
they would guarantee free transit
a la costa
from the East Coast
oeste de los Estados
to
Unidos,
the West Coast
porque estaba
of the United States, because
desbordado de los norteamericanos
there was a
buscando cómo viajar rápido
trafficking
a la
of
costa oeste,
some deported Americans. They wanted to go quickly to the East Coast.
y
They were fleeing hunger.
miles de familias que
And there were
trasladaban en
thousands
territorio
of
norteamericano
families
huyendo
all
de
across the American territory
porque los asaltaban,
running in
porque
danger
había alguna
because they were
resistencia indígena.
assaulted, because there was an indigenous resistance as well.
Vanderbilt vio
And
los
so
mapas
Vanderbilt
y buscó
looked at the
pasajes en
maps
Centroamérica y
and
he
he tried to find some passages in Central America, and then he found this natural passage in Nicaragua.
los años
And this happened in 1854, 1855, 1856,
se produce
when
el desembarco de las tropas de
the troops,
Walker
the Walker troops,
y
arrived in the country,
luego Walker lo que hace es
and then
irse apoderando del país,
Walker
ir tomando todo el poder de los
appropriated the country,
y en esas condiciones
and in those conditions,
donde la población nicaragüense
in which the Nicaraguan population
que no llegaba al millón de
did not
personas,
even get to 1 million people.
la población de Nicaragua,
They were much, much less.
con ejércitos, con
And it had
armamento y fusiles
an army with weapons,
que no tenían la
which of course
capacidad,
did not have the same
efectividad
capacity,
de
the
lo que
same
traían
effectiveness
Walker.
of the weapons that Walker brought to the country.
No se rindieron.
But they did not surrender.
No se rindieron frente a Walker.
They did not surrender to Walker because Walker moved so fast, and the first thing he did was to appoint a president. And then he self-appointed himself a president. He made up an election, and then he said, William Walker is the president of Nicaragua, as recognized by the government of the United States back then.
A esa fuerza de Walker, que era una fuerza poderosa comparada con la fuerza
And
que
so
tenía
the forces of Walker were most
fuerza nicaragüense,
powerful when compared to the Nicaraguan forces.
al mando del general José Dolores
But they
Estrada
started to gather
y
under the command of General Estrada,
los indígenas de
and then the
Matagalpa,
indigenous from Matagalpa,
al norte de
an
Nicaragua,
area that is at the north of Nicaragua, joined those forces.
se atrincheraron
They united,
en una hacienda, San
they
Jacinto,
trenched themselves in the farm of
ahí
San
se
Jacinto.
rindieron detrás de los
They
de
stayed
piedra,
there,
están ahí los muros de piedra,
right behind
para
the stone walls of the farm,
combatir
to
a los
fight
invasores.
those invaders.
Y se dio el combate. Como resultado del combate,
So the fight took place, and as a result of that fight,
cayó el coronel norteamericanos.
the American Colonel Byron Coleman fell. He was defeated, and of course, it was a huge blow for them. In the meantime,
las tropas que se quedaban sin municiones,
those troops
que no tenían armamento,
were resistant. They did not have enough ammunition. They did not have enough weapons.
el valor,
But there we saw the emergence of the bravery and the courage of our hero, Andres Castro.
avanza un soldado yankee,
And right when a Yankee soldier was coming over the trench,
municiones,
he didn't have any ammo, but he just took a stone and he threw it against the invader, and they were defeated.
fueron expulsados de Nicaragua.
They were defeated, they were expelled from Nicaragua.
Lo vino a recoger, lógicamente,
And of course, then they were retrieved by an American ship.
como héroes.
They were welcomed in their country as heroes.
Y esa fue la primera prueba de fuego
And that was the first
frente a la
test of Nicaragua
del imperialismo.
faced with the attacks of expansionist imperialism.
Luego hubo una segunda batalla.
Later, there was a second battle
Estando en el gobierno, un gobierno
when
liberal,
we had a liberal government.
no le podían llamar comunista porque todavía pues
He was not really a communist because there were no communist parties in these countries at the time.
el liberalismo
So liberalism
cuando toma el gobierno
arrives to power after the election,
por el general José Santos
and it was led by General Jose Santos Iraya, and he started to organize a deep reform.
que no las aprobaba el gobierno
And
yanqui,
these reforms, of course, were not approved
que las
by
condenaba el gobierno
the
yanqui.
Yankee government. They were condemned by the American government.
Y al final el gobierno de los Estados
In the
Unidos
end,
a través de
the US administration,
su canciller le manda una nota
through their Minister of Foreign
a
Affairs,
Zelaya y le dice,
they wrote a note to President Zelaya and they said, "You need to leave
porque ya las tropas norteamericanas van,
because the American troops are going to Nicaragua.
si no se marcha pues
If you don't leave,
van a capturar."
you're going to be captured."
Zelaya no tuvo el temple
But Zelaya
para ponerse al frente,
did not have the courage
lo asumió
to be at the forefront to resist.
líder del liberalismo,
Another leader of liberalism
Benjamín Celedón,
took on this task, General Benjamin Celedon.
un destacamento
He organized a group of soldiers that started to fight against the American troops
al Coyotepe,
that were going to the Coyotepe,
donde estaba atrincherado el general Celedón.
where General Celedon was safeguarded.
Esa fue una batalla heroica.
That was a heroic battle.
No podían lograr que se rindiera Celedón y le estaba
They
cortando bajas.
could not make Celedon surrender,
Pusieron
and they were losing their soldiers. And so they proposed, well, if you surrender, we will forgive your life,
Zelaya,
we will not kill you. But
yo no me rindo.
they said, no, I will not surrender.
Una carta
And he wrote a letter,
y en esta carta ahí él
and in this letter,
le pedía a su esposa, a sus hijos,
he was writing to his wife, to his children, and he said
iba a dar la vida.
that he would give his life
No podía rendirse
because
frente
He could never surrender to the invaders.
La envió en los días en que ya
He sent this letter
de
in the days where he was about to fall in combat.
fue en el mes de octubre,
And it was in October,
4 de octubre
October 4th,
de 1902,
1902,
General Benjamín
when General Benjamin Celedon, a national hero,
imperialista
firm
firme,
anti-imperialist,
entregó su vida
he gave his life for the sovereignty of Nicaragua.
y el cadáver de Celedón lo anduvieron
And the body of Celedon
a todos lados, los yanquis,
was
para sembrarle temor a la
taken
población.
everywhere by the Yankees to sow fear
Sandino,
in the people. And there was a boy, Sandino, he was just a boy, and he saw
Sandino como cuando
his
vio
body. And he said
la humillación
that when he saw the humiliation
Nicaragua que le hacían
against Nicaragua, against General Celedon, he became extremely angry.
ahí él decidió
And he decided at that moment
a los invasores
to face the invaders.
y enfrentó a los invasores yanquis
And he did face the Yankee invaders.
y libró una batalla
And he waged a battle,
larga de
a
años.
very long,
Los yanquis utilizaron
years-long
la
battle.
aviación
The Americans used aviation troops
derrotarlo.
trying to defeat him,
Cada día salían más bajas
but
tropas yanquis.
every day they lost more and
Su
more
ejército
soldiers.
de campesinos
Sandino was facing the Americans with the army of peasants in the mountains of Nicaragua.
final,
And in the end,
a los yanquis no les quedó más camino que
the Americans had no other choice
retirarse.
but to withdraw.
Fueron derrotados
So they were
por
defeated
Sandino.
by General Sandino.
Y ya después de la derrota,
And then after that defeat,
vinieron unos acuerdos de paz.
there were some peace agreements
Sacasa,
with President Sacasa.
Somoza, que era agente de los yanquis,
And Somoza was an agent of the Americans. He was at the front of the Nicaraguan army.
le tendió una emboscada
And so
de ser
he planned an ambush
recibido por el presidente
against him
Sacasa.
after he was welcomed by President Sacasa,
Invitó
who invited him to dinner.
y ahí, bueno, ya habían firmado los acuerdos de
And they
paz.
had already signed all the peace agreements. And so there was this dinner. Sandino was joined by his father and the high authorities of the military.
Terminó la cena,
So the
la
dinner
noche,
finished
cuando ellos vienen
late at night,
saliendo de la cena,
and they were just leaving the house,
sobre una avenida
going down the avenue
a la orilla de los cuarteles que ocupaban
right
yanquis.
by the headquarters of the Americans in Somoza.
La guardia de
And
Somoza
right there, the Somoza guard stopped him,
lo
detained
cerca
him. He was cornered.
y él reclama. La hija del
He, of
presidente
course,
Sacasa, ahí
opposed.
estaba en la
And the
cena,
daughter of
venía
President
bajando
Hakasa, who was at the dinner and then walked out and he saw the detention of General Sandino, she started protesting,
después
but
los fusilaron.
right after that, they were just killed.
Pensaban que esa
All of
batalla
them were shot.
Nicaragua, pues,
And they thought
era
that
sometida
after that,
al
Nicaragua
imperio yanqui
would be completely
y sometida, por lo tanto, también
subjugated to the Yankee Empire and, of course,
al
submitted as well
criminal que dejaron los yanquis aquí
to that criminal
Somoza.
that the Americans left governing Nicaragua, Somoza.
La conciencia
But when there is a consciousness, when there is courage, when there is love for the homeland, the people will continue to wait for the right time to defeat the traitors. And after Sandino, the fighters of the Sandino army continued to fight. There were several guerrilla incursions, and they were defeated because they were very small guerrilla forces, guerrilla groups, and they were fighting in very difficult conditions. But they still had that courage, that resistance of fighting this battle, even in that disadvantageous position.
Well, in the end, the young heirs of Sandino's thoughts organized the Sandinist Front of National Liberation. This front waged a long battle, thousands of deaths, and Somoza Guard, armed by the Americans, trained by the Americans. And in the end, it was possible that, once again, under the inspiration of the triumph of the Cuban Revolution, it was a moral boost for Nicaraguans. Cuba has just triumphed in 59, 7, and 20 years later, we have the triumph of the Nicaraguan Revolution. When we thought that the end of revolutions had arrived in Latin America and the Caribbean, we saw the triumph of the Nicaraguan Revolution. And then, since we have had the long path confronting innumerable conspiracies, innumerable attempts to destroy the revolutionary process. We have a people, a youth, fully incorporated in all the activities, fully integrated in all the activities related to the well-being of the people, the fight against poverty, and developing projects, since our main objective remains peace. We are defenders of peace. Sandino fought for peace, and we want peace. In the north, we have those who consider themselves as the owner of our America. And the famous Monroe Doctrine is nothing but the translation of this purpose to get hold of the whole of Latin America and the Caribbean.
Yo diría que ha habido un eje fundamental
I think
que ha contribuido a
there is something that has contributed to strengthen the resistance and the struggle of Latin American peoples,
lograron
namely the fact that
hermano mayor, el comandante Fidel Castro,
our senior brothers, Commander Fidel Castro,
nuestro hermano comandante
our
Hugo Rafael
brother,
Chávez Frías,
Commander Hugo Chavez Frias,
Fidel, el padre,
Fidel, our father,
y Hugo,
and Hugo, the son.
y ellos lograron
Together,
que se diera un salto
they made possible
en lo que es la defensa
this
de los derechos
jump into the defense of the rights, identities of the peoples of our America.
y el primer gran paso fue la
The
creación
major
del
step
ALBA.
was the creation of ALBA, no doubt.
Y a pesar de todos los vaivenes,
And despite
a pesar de
the
todas
ups and downs,
las amenazas,
despite the
a pesar
threats,
de todas las sanciones,
despite sanctions,
el ALBA
ALBA remains alive and
ALBA
kicking.
sigue caminando.
ALBA keeps walking towards the future.
Sí, como le decía
And
Quijote,
as Quixote said to Sancho,
no te preocupes,
don't worry,
los perros
Sancho,
ladran porque vamos caminando.
the dogs bark because we are walking.
Y cuanto más nos vean caminar,
And the more they see us walking,
más fortaleza y más firmeza vean en nosotros,
the higher the
más
strength that we show,
atacarán, más
well,
morderán.
more they will try to bite us, more they will bark at us.
Este cerco, ellos están
This
en su proyecto cercano
siege
militarmente,
they're using to surround the region with,
tomando como punto de partida
taken as a starting point
la Bolivariana
the Bolivarian
de Venezuela,
Republic of Venezuela
con el cuento
with this
narcotráfico.
fake
Y
objective of dealing with drug trafficking.
se han descubierto, se han descubierto. Ya se decía que lo que quieren es el petróleo
But we
del
know
pueblo venezolano.
that that's a bogus story. What they do want is Venezuelan oil.
Robarse
So
un barco petrolero.
what did they do? They robbed,
Un robo.
they seized
Son
a Venezuelan
ladrones.
oil vessel. They are thieves, well-dressed thieves, but thieves after all.
De robar.
They think they have the right to rob
Robarse el
our
petróleo.
resources, to steal the oil belonging to Venezuela.
Tenemos que condenar, lógicamente,
So we need to condemn
esas agresiones.
these aggressions
Agresiones que están apuntando a todos los
whose
países.
main goal is to attack in the end all this CELAC region.
Y habrán algunos gobiernos que piensan
And
que porque
some countries
amigos entre
might think because they are, quote unquote, close to the United States, friends with the United States, that they're going to have a free pass. US leaders, the imperialists of this earth, they do not have friends. They have no friends. What they just did in Honduras, to determine who the president should be.
Porque no sabemos cómo le irá a ir.
Because we don't know what the end of the story will be.
A los Estados Unidos, que aborrece
The United States,
al pueblo hondureño,
they hate, they loathe Honduran people, they loathe Central American people, they loathe them because of migration. So they are going to make sure that they can impose themselves. And if the president who is finally elected in Honduras does not bow to their desires, he will no longer be a friend. He will be a foe of the United States.
Son momentos estos realmente extraordinarios.
So these are extraordinary times in the struggle for peace around the world.
Vemos a la Unión Europea.
So we see the European Union also sounding the drums of war.
Meterse, como ya se ha metido en favor de los nazis de Ucrania.
In order to side with the Nazis in Ukraine and against the Russian Federation. This is a war waged by the Russian people against the Nazis.
Donde viven millones de rusos y que los
in the land where Russians have lived for years and they have been murdered in Ukraine.
A la Unión Europea,
and we see now sounding the drums of war. And the Pope claiming for peace. Peoples want peace. And we know that the Ukrainian people also want peace. And the people of Israel also want peace. However, there is a party, there is a government which is a fascist government, fascist leaders. After Nazis massacred the Israeli people, now this government is then attacking the Palestinian people when they are sisterly peoples. But they are now trying to annihilate the Palestinian people, denying the Palestinian people the right to develop. I mean, the destruction there is horrendous. They have flattened cities. They have killed thousands of children. And in the United States, the persecution against migrants. And this is a clear expression of racism of the US authorities. And I'm certain that the majority of the US people are against the persecution against migrants because migrants are working in favor of the US people. So they're waging war against migrants, expelling them, applying a racist policy. And that does not bode well. This policy implemented in the United States does not bode well. The US people are suffering the impact of the economic measures adopted by the US administration against social programs, affecting health programs, which are essential for the well-being of the US people. And there is a clear rejection against the measures adopted by the US government. Threatening also Mexico, threatening Colombia. And send troops. And they say so openly, without restraint. But the peoples are going to react, and the US people are going to react as well. And peace should prevail in the end. And the people of Bolivar, of Chavez, of Nicolas, the Bolivarian people as a whole, that have been the target of a policy of annihilation, of estranglement. Well, these people have in the peasants, the workers, all of them are Bolivar, all of them are Chavez, all of them have in them this fortitude and bravery, and they will never flee because they have been threatened by military force or the threat of a military invasion. No one is fleeing these threats. On the opposite, on the contrary, the Venezuelan people are celebrating, they are happy, they are firm and ready to confront anything these people dare to do, because they have the conviction that they will prevail in the end. And the defeat is clear because Venezuela is a peaceful nation. They have not succeeded in generating any subversion or reaction in the heart of the Venezuelan people. Over the contrary, it is total support of the Venezuelan authorities within the Venezuelan people. Support to President Nicolas, support to the armed forces. There is, therefore, there is unity, there is joy. They are not terrorized because there's a few Yankee ships. They are not terrorized by that. On the contrary, this is a people with strong fortitude, and they will prevail, and they're prevailing today, and they are an example. They are a source of inspiration to the Latin American Caribbean people and an example to the peoples of the world. We fully share the presentation made by President Nicolas Maduro on how we should organize themselves, how we should work in order to be far more effective, and how to work with a clear-cut agenda to be implemented. And this, no doubt, is going to give us greater strength at all levels, because we're going to be more united than ever, because we will be putting into practice all these elements that President Maduro mentioned. So we want to, as usual, convey our solidarity with the heroic people of Marty, of Fidel, of Raúl, and of our brother President Miguel Díaz-Canel, who visited us when we confronted the Contra. And he was there at the combat areas. So we salute the Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Dominica, Roosevelt Skerrit, Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Philippe Pierre, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Trade and Barbuda Affairs, Antigua and Barbuda, Chet Green. Also welcome Minister of Foreign Affairs, International Trade, Industry and Commerce, Consumer Affairs, Economic Development and Investment of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, Denzel Douglas, and Minister of Foreign Affairs, Trade and Export Development of Grenada, Joseph Andel, and Minister of Foreign Affairs, Foreign Trade, Foreign Investment and Diaspora Affairs of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dwight Fitzgerald Bramble. To all of you, dear brothers, our greetings to your peoples and our commitment to continue getting closer, to strengthen even further our relations in all fields. We are mindful that on a lower degree, higher degree, we are confronting difficulties. And the path to overcome those difficulties. That path have already been set by Fidel and Chavez. The only path is ALBA. United, we are already prevailing. The mere fact that we are gathering today on this occasion, that we have this exchange, is a clear demonstration of a strength, of loyalty, of fortitude with our peoples, with Fidel and it's Hugo Rafael Chavez Frias. So thank you very much. I salute you. I embrace you all. Thank you very much from the people of Nicaragua.
Thank you for that historical reflection, for your guidelines, and for your ideas that we have for this extraordinary path. It is a unique history, everything that is told. It is not science fiction. It's not like Superman. It is about our heroes, Sandino, Andres Castro, like David against Goliath. In the end, we are as strong as David against today's, yesterday's, and the future Goliath. We have the power of David, the power of the peoples blessed by God. Because David told Goliath, you may have the biggest sword that has ever been seen. You may be 2 meters height, and he was very skinny, very small, but you don't have what I have. And Goliath said, what do you have? And he said, I have the power and the blessings of God, and the power and the blessings of my people. And with the sling, Goliath was done. We are the David of the 21st century, and we walk with Sandino. Sandino forever. They thought that after they shot him, he disappeared. But Sandino stayed in the blood, in the heart, and in the land of that people. And then he came back to life in that beautiful process of July 19, 1979. So our greetings, always Bolivar talking about peace, our objective, our life, our strength, our struggle. And on June 23rd, 1820, 1 year and 1 day before the Carabobo battle, said something that is a mantra for us. And I quote, peace will be my port, my glory, my reward, my hope, my joy, and anything that is precious in the world. That is peace, the peace that wins every single day, and the peace that we will build with solid foundations in this effort. So before giving the floor to the Caribbean leader, the Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Dominica, Roosevelt Skerrit, I have told the different delegations of our new member countries of a proposal that we have been working on, so that in the spirit of the Milagro mission, dear President Díaz-Canel, people of Cuba, in the spirit of that same mission, it is about creating a special mission of energy and power of ALBA, of an international nature. It is a special mission to support in an extraordinary, in a special manner, the people of Cuba in their fight against the blockade and in any problem of electricity and power that they have. It will be international mission of energy and electricity of special support for the people of Cuba. Of course, I submit this for your consideration, and then we will give you some news about this resolution. And from here, I embrace, on behalf of the people of Venezuela, Roosevelt Skerritts, the leader and Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Dominica. You have the floor.
Okay. Muchas gracias. Es un placer verlos a todos y participar en este.
It is an honor to see you all today to participate in these summits.
Mucho amor para todos.
I have a lot of love for all of you.
Y te mando abrazos desde mi Dominica.
I embrace you from Dominica.
Don't worry, be happy.
I want to recognize my dear brother and friend, the comrade president of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela and chairman of today's summit. My dear brother, president of the Republic of Cuba, and of course, our dear brother, the president of Nicaragua. I remember listening to the comrade president of Nicaragua back in primary school. And he, to me, looks like someone who is still at 50 years old, very strong and energetic, and we embrace his wisdom and his guidance. I also want to recognize my dear brother Prime Minister of St. Lucia, our dear foreign ministers of Antigua and Barbuda, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Grenada, and our ambassadors present, ladies and gentlemen, friends, all, good evening. I want to thank the President of Venezuela for convening this meeting. I believe this meeting has been held in a really timely manner, an opportune moment. It is a time when the Caribbean region is facing unprecedented challenges to our peace and security, challenges to our economic and social well-being, and the cohesion of the Caribbean and Latin America. And also the principle that we've held for so many decades, that is, the Caribbean is a zone of peace. And we want to reiterate that position very firmly as we stand in absolute solidarity with the government and people of Venezuela in the face of this unprecedented and unprovoked threat. Now, all of us here present at this meeting have a history of fighting against drug trafficking and criminal activity in our respective countries and within our borders and territorial waters. This is a fact that cannot be disputed. We always welcome the opportunities to work together, whatever is the United States or any other country, to fight the scourge of criminal activities within our region. It is an issue that destabilizes our governments, or attempt to destabilize our governments, that creates a lot of mayhem and conflicts within our countries and among our people. And so we stand very firmly, all of us within ALBA, the Caribbean, Latin America, stand very firmly against criminal activity, and we stand in solidarity in fighting against gangs and criminal engagement where drug trafficking is concerned. I believe also, Mr. President, that this is a moment for us to bind together even closer than we've ever been. It is a time for us to demonstrate the solidarity to each other and for each other. This is a test that history is posing at us. And it will be interesting to see how history will record our own commitment to solidarity, our own recognition of friendship. And the question is whether we as a people are going to disappoint our forefathers, those who fought for independence, those who died for our independence, those who fought and died for our sovereignty, and those who fought and died for our integrity and our dignity. This is not a time for us to be fearful. I believe it is a time for us to strengthen our bonds of cooperation, our bonds of solidarity, our bonds of complementarity. As always, Dominica stands very firmly on a principle against the blockade of Cuba, and we will stand anywhere in the world before any forum and demand that the blockade against Cuba be removed. This is unjustified. It has served no useful purpose except to create unfortunate poverty and economic and social challenges to our people. And we stand very firmly on this. And for anybody or any country to say that Cuba is a country that that sponsors terrorism is really telling a blatant lie. Cuba has been known for reaching out to countries on a humanitarian basis, in solidarity with countries, notwithstanding its own economic and social challenge. And I believe that a prosperous Cuba, a Cuba that can demonstrate its true capacity and potential, would be beneficial to the entire world, not only the Caribbean, Latin American region, but the entire world. And so we stand on principle on this matter. This is not for negotiation. We don't negotiate principles, we negotiate words. We also stand in solidarity with the government and people of Venezuela, that we believe, in this case, the relationship between the United States of America and Venezuela, that's a matter for these two countries to determine how they go about this relationship. But insofar as protecting and respecting the sovereignty of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela and its people, respecting its territorial integrity, and calling for peace and ensuring that people can go about their daily lives with respect and a recognition that they are part of a sovereign nation. We stand in absolute solidarity with the government and people of Venezuela. And so, Mr. President, my message to us is very simple, that this moment calls for us to stand shoulder to shoulder with each other. This moment calls for us to express our solidarity with dignity, with a sense of pride, and from a principled standpoint. We're not here to declare war on anybody. This is not who we are. This is not how we have been taught. And if we look at the lessons from Fidel Castro, a leader of a country that has been subjected to so many assassination attempts on his personal life, so many efforts to derail their sovereignty, Fidel has always taught us that we choose the path of peace against the path of war. And where Cuba has been involved in other parts of the world is to bring dignity to people, is to bring freedom to people, is to bring peace to regions ravaged by war and ethnic cleansing. And so we have our forefathers, our teachers to follow their instructions. In the case of Hugo Chavez, the same. Hugo Chavez always spoke about bringing dignity to people, ensuring the sovereignty of nations, respect for each other, and working together towards common solutions to common challenges. Never spoke of war, never spoke of going to war with anybody. And if you look at all of the neighbors in Latin America, all the efforts from Venezuela was to maintain peace and a brotherly neighborhood, that we can share the resources that we have for the rest of the region, so that all of us can grow together and bring greater prosperity to our respective citizens. And so I want to commend the president of Venezuela for following the tutelage of his former president, Hugo Chavez, of blessed eternal memory, that we choose the path of peace, we choose the path of dialogue, we choose the path of engagement on a diplomatic and other levels. And I want to commend the leadership. I think President Maduro, you continue to impress me as a leader. the manner in which you have been able to lead your country during difficult times. And we get strength from your tenacity, for your commitment to the struggles, and for your commitment to the ideals of Bolivar and Hugo Chavez and Fidel Castro. And so rest assured, you're not alone in this moment. We will continue to engage at all levels to ensure that respect for sovereignty is maintained, respect for international law is observed, and that countries are allowed to self-determine, to choose a government of their choosing, and to govern the affairs of the country in a manner in which their citizens would wish for them to do so. And this is what we've all been doing in this Latin American and Caribbean space. And we want to all reiterate the need for this region to maintain a zone of peace. A zone of peace where every citizen, every government, every country can go about their lives, recognizing that there's international law, recognizing that there is self-determination. And so my message to us is not very long, but to say to you and to our friends all over Latin America and Caribbean that Dominica always will stand on matters of principle, on those issues. We will not go standing on the mountaintop and shout across the Caribbean Sea, but certainly we're not up for compromising or negotiating our principles. And no one will choose our friends for us. Cuba, Venezuela, and our friends in Caribbean, Latin America have all been very kind to us, wonderful neighbors. And I have no reason to change the course of this and to change the circumstance of this. We need to strengthen these relationships, strengthen the bonds of solidarity and complementarity, and working together towards addressing social injustice, upholding the dignity of the human being, and ensuring that every citizen can live without fear of any attack on their countries or their homes or their communities. The monies are better spent otherwise than war. There's so many challenges in this world. There's still so many millions of children who go to bed hungry. And there's so many millions of families wake up in the morning in this world not knowing where they will get one meal, far more for 2 or 3 meals. But yet still, there are some who believe that war is a route towards solving the world's problems. History has taught us that war has solved nothing, but bring more chaos and destruction, long-term chaos and destruction to people. And so I do hope that history will be remembered in all what those who seek to promote war will understand. And so, Mr. President, I thank you for your invitation. I look forward to coming to see you in Caracas at some point. But let it be known that you have friends, and you have friends who are standing with you in solidarity and standing together with the Venezuelan people, the free and dignified Venezuelan people, who will protect their homeland and to ensure that succeeding generations will benefit from this freedom that so many fought for and that we enjoy today. Thank you, Mr. President.
Bueno, muchas gracias a Robert Scarry.
Thank you very much, Roosevelt Garrett, Caribbean leader, Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Dominica, and who is speaking better and better Spanish. I was impressed by your Spanish. He has been learning it for years. And I am also learning English, you know, but I speak like Tarzan.
I've seen your TikTok. No war, peace.
Pero ahora combiné una nueva canción.
But now I am combining it with a new song.
Not war,
Not war, be happy.
No a la guerra, sé feliz. Y deja a los demás.
No war, be happy, and let others be happy as well. So, well, thank you very much for your permanent solidarity in the Caribbean. The Caribbean is a great region for peace, for harmony, for coexistence, integration, and to be better and better every day. We have the projects, Roosevelt, of Blue ALBA, ALBA Azul, to continue to work together in fisheries, in our capacities, which has been growing in all of our countries, fishing for exports as well to other regions. We also have Agro ALBA to produce food, everything that is related with to tourism. We have air connection. It's going very well, but I know it can improve a lot more. So we are moving forward in all of those areas. We have a permanent offensive for the united and integrated development of our countries and our peoples. Little by little, we will get very far. And now we will give the floor to this very dynamic leader of the Caribbean, Philippe J. Pierre from St. Lucia. He was just elected with an overwhelming victory. Congratulations, Philip. You have the floor.
Thank you so much. Greetings to everyone. I want to pay special tribute to the president of Venezuela, particularly in these trying times. It's St. Lucia's hope that good things will prevail. The people of St. Lucia cherish democracy and freedom, as demonstrated in a free and fair elections observed by international observers worldwide. These elections saw the historic victory of the party that I have the honor to lead, the St. Lucia Labour Party. We were the only party to be elected twice in successive elections from the year 2001. We achieved this victory with an increased majority in parliament and increased majority in popular votes. We continue to guard our democracy jealously and remain active members of CARICOM. I want to fully associate myself with the comments of my friend Roosevelt of Dominica. For a small region, our population in St. Lucia is only 185,000. Our people want a peaceful existence, but to improve the quality of life and make each generation better. We do not want war. We want a peaceful existence. We are a hardworking people, and we continue to call for our region to remain a zone of peace. We join in solidarity with all nations and people seeking to make their lives better and to improve the quality of life of their people. We condemn in no uncertain terms drug trafficking, human trafficking, or illegal arms and ammunition. Our small size makes us more vulnerable than many, but our people are proud and resilient, and we guard our independence jealously. We stand together in our fight against poverty, in our fight against exploitation, in our fight against discrimination. And we look forward to the gains that are possible from our involvement in ALBA. Thank you, Mr. President. And I wish the people, you and the people of Venezuela, good cheer as you are involved in this struggle. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Bueno, muchas gracias por esas palabras.
Thank you very much for your kind remarks of motivation, of commitment, and for that huge victory, an exemplary victory of leaders that work with their people. I think there is a very big commitment of our whole region to walk the path of dignity, of courage, to work for peace, but the peace of the just, the peace of the peoples, peace with independence, with equality, with justice, peace with absolute freedom, with the self-determination of the peoples, peace with respect to our countries, to our culture, not the peace that they used to call the Roman peace, the imperial peace, which is the peace of the tombs, of silence, of subordination, slavery. No, it is the peace of the free, of the fair. We are going towards that peace with more and more strength every day. And right now, I would like to give the floor to Chet Green, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Trade, and Other Affairs of Antigua and Barbuda. You have the floor.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Saludos. Distinguished heads of
Greetings,
state and government, prime ministers, Pierre and Skerritt, colleague ministers, ambassadors, esteemed government officials, brothers and sisters of the ALBA-TCP family. It is my distinct honor to convey on behalf of the government and people of Antigua and Barbuda the warmest fraternal greetings of my Prime Minister Gaston Brown. We extend our profound gratitude to the government and the resilient people of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela for your gracious hospitality in convening this pivotal summit at a moment of profound global uncertainty and regional challenge. We gather under the enduring banner of ALBA as we approach the milestone of a profound historical significance, the centennial celebration of the birth of Comandante en Jefe Fidel Alejandro Castro Ruz. Born on August 13, 1926, in Biran, Cuba, Fidel's life and leadership became a foundational pillar for our alliance. His revolutionary vision, unwavering courage, and profound commitment to the dignity, sovereignty, and solidarity of the peoples of the Global South are the very moral and ideological bedrock upon which ALBA was built. Today, we do not merely celebrate or remember a leader. Instead, we reaffirm the living legacy of a man whose destiny became inextricably linked with the emancipation of our America. Fidel's genius was understood and understand long before others that authentic integration could never be a project of markets and ledgers alone. He taught us that true unity springs from shared value, mutual respect, and an unshakable belief in social justice, equity, and the inalienable right of all peoples to self-determination. Alongside the immortal Bolivian leader, Hugo Chavez Frias, and joined from the integrating vision of Jose Marti, Fidel forged an alliance that stands as a defiant testament to cooperation without subordination and solidarity without conditions. His legacy is a compass for present challenges. The spirit of Fidel, a spirit of principled resistance, intellectual clarity, and boundless solidarity, inspires us all to stand united, determined, and resolute in safeguarding our region as a zone of peace, free from military intervention and the shadow of conflict. This proclamation, formally enshrined within CELAC, is a solemn covenant with our peoples and future generations. It is a commitment to resolve differences through dialogue, respect for international law, and a peaceful coexistence of nations. It is against this sacred principle that my country, Antigua and Barbuda, continues to express our deep concern regarding the military presence of extra-regional powers in the Caribbean basin. Such deployments heighten tensions, erode mutual trust, and directly contravene the spirit of peace, cooperation, and non-intervention that defines our collective aspiration. We assert, therefore, unequivocally, the Caribbean Sea must remain a corridor for sustainable development and cultural exchange, never a theater for geopolitical rivalry or militarization. Through enhanced coordination and collective diplomacy, we must, with one voice, defend the tenets of the United Nations Charter, the sovereignty and territorial integrity of all states, and the right of every nation, irrespective of size or economic power, to pursue its own developmental path, free from coercion, unlawful sanctions, or intimidation. Concurrently, we face the existential threat of our era, the climate crisis. For our alliance of vulnerable states, this is not a distant risk, but a present accelerating catastrophe. ALBA, grounded in solidarity, is uniquely positioned to pioneer collective action. We must deepen cooperation in climate adaptation, disaster resilience, food and energy sovereignty, and jointly advocate in all fora for climate justice, demanding accessible financing, debt relief, and operational loss and damage mechanisms for those on the front lines. It is in this same pursuit for justice that Antigua and Barbuda reiterates our full and unwavering support for the CARICOM Reparatory Justice Initiative. The persistent legacies of enslavement, genocide, and colonial exploitation continue to manifest as a structural inequality and the underdevelopment across our region. Reparatory justice is an ethical imperative of repair and reconciliation, fundamental to the building of equitable futures. We therefore urge all ALBA member states to endorse the CARICOM 10-point plan and to collectively advance this critical dialogue for historical ratification. Antigua and Barbuda remains steadfastly committed to the foundational principles of ALBA: solidarity, complementarity, justice, and mutual respect for sovereignty, all in harmony with nature. It is by adhering to these guiding lights and principles that we will secure a region of peace and prosperity for our children and for generations to come. We categorically condemn the sustained and unjust efforts to destabilize the economic sovereignty of Cuba. As democratic custodians of Latin America and the Caribbean, we have a sacred responsibility to resolve our differences through institutionalized dialogue and diplomacy, never through destabilization or conflict. It is our hope that ALBA family can work even more closely within the framework of the CELAC to ensure that peaceful cooperative relations define our present while safeguarding our future. In this spirit, Antigua and Barbuda additionally reaffirms our solidarity with the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela and renew our call for the use of diplomacy and meaningful engagement to bolster our hemispheric defense of democracy, sovereignty, and the rule of law. At this juncture of escalating tensions, ALBA must champion a renewed commitment to diplomacy, dialogue, and collective security founded on peace. Our strength lies not in arms, but in our unity of purpose and our shared determination to defend our people's rights and dignity, development, and self-determination. Moving forward, let us honor the vision of our founders by making ALBA a perpetual guardian of our rights, of our dignities, and our peace. Mr. President, colleagues, it is indeed an honor and a pleasure today to speak with you on this occasion of the recognition of the centenary of the life, legacy, work, and continued presence in our midst of His Excellency, Comandante en Jefe, Fidel Castro Ruz. Muchísimas gracias, señor presidente. Y ese será el último vez antes de Navidad. Feliz Navidad a
it
usted
is
y
the
todo
last time before
pueblo
Christmas.
venezolano.
Merry Christmas to you and to the whole of Venezuelan people.
Happy New Year.
Yo hablo un poco mejor que presidente de Dominica, el
I
español.
speak better, a little bit better than the Prime Minister of Dominica, the Spanish, I mean.
Merry Christmas. Bueno, felicidades a todos.
Thank you. Congratulations. Perpetual peace is conveyed by Antigua and Barbuda, and ALBA as the protector angel of perpetual peace of our Caribbean, our South America, Latin America as a whole. ALBA has a philosophy, doctrine, ideas, strategy, policies, history, actions. ALBA is ALBA. ALBA has a lot to do. ALBA is a strong alliance, the Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of our America. It is an alliance for peace, for development, joint development. Therefore, we would like to give the floor to our sister Grenada, to Joseph Andel, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Trade and Export Development. Welcome, sir. You have the floor, brother.
Muchísimas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Parece que hoy todo el mundo está hablando en español.
I think everybody's speaking Spanish today.
I would like to bring greetings from Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell, who could not be here with us today, and from the people and government of Grenada. President Nicolas Maduro, President Miguel Díaz-Canel, Comandante Daniel Ortega Saavedra, and co-president Rosario Murillo, Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit, newly re-elected Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre, my colleague foreign ministers, and other distinguished participants in this very important summit. I bring you season's greetings and wish us all very successful deliberations at this summit. I would like to take this opportunity to give a very special welcome to Honorable Fitzgerald Bramble, who I believe is attending his first ALBA meeting. Welcome, Minister, and I look forward to meeting you in the flesh sooner rather than later. Comrades, we are in very trying times. I cannot say unprecedented, because what we are seeing is a reenactment of ancient history. And this is highlighting to us the need for us to be ever vigilant and to always be in solidarity with each other. We have to be able to see through the pretexts that are being used to attempt to recolonize Latin America and the Caribbean. Not only to see them, but to expose them. I am not quoting, I'm paraphrasing Fidel, who once said that the truth must not only be known, it must also be promulgated. It is important that we take steps to ensure not only the survival of ALBA, but its growth and its strengthening. We have to look at what is taking place today in the Caribbean Sea, and to a lesser extent on the Pacific side of South America. Naked intervention is being disguised as a war on drugs. Every responsible government is against the production and the trafficking of drugs. We all know the deleterious effect that narcotics have on populations, particularly young people. And I believe that all of us are parents, and therefore we too have a personal investment in the fight against drugs. But Grenada believes that the fight against drugs must first of all look at the root causes. What drives people to consume it? And the enforcement side of it must be from the perspective of law enforcement rather than military force. What we are seeing here is that the small countries of the Caribbean, primarily Grenada, are being put under enormous pressure to get involved in a military adventure not of our making, not of our desire. Deliberate attempts are being made to create divisions within the ALBA family and within the CARICOM and OECS families. And while the pressures are heavy and strong, while the threats are real, while the intervention is also real, and resistance may even cause some of us to lose political power in our countries, it is important that we stand on the right side of history. It is important that we not let artificial ideological divisions stand in the way of genuine Caribbean and Latin American solidarity as we face this threat. This is a threat that is grounded also in the ideology of white supremacy. When we hear the type of language being used to describe our sisters and brothers from Africa, we know too that we are included as targets of that language and of that ideology. And that makes it even more important that we continue, even within our countries and within our region, the struggle against racism, the struggle against inequality, the struggle against oppression. We continue to call for the sovereignty of all nations, big or small, to be respected. That international law be applied consistently and not conveniently. We cannot afford to go back to the law of the jungle. And it is therefore important that we in ALBA lean not only on our collective strength, but that we make outreach to other parts of the world, to other regions where hopefully there is still a semblance of justice and right in effect. We need to strengthen ourselves by taking advantage of the opportunities that President Maduro spoke about in the area of food production and food security, the development of industry, the development of a reliable, affordable, and accessible transportation infrastructure among ourselves, and the deepening of trade relationships among ourselves. We have to deliberately forge new alliances, particularly with Africa, with the countries of Asia. Comrades, we were taught in primary school that Africa was this dark, mysterious, faraway place. Modern reality is showing us otherwise. A direct flight from the Gambia in West Africa to St. George's, Grenada, is just about 5.5 hours, almost the same as from St. George's to New York. And therefore, we have to use our ingenuity to partner with Africa so that a new frontier can be opened up to bridge a gap, to bring us closer to the African continent, and to create great opportunities for economic and social development, for political solidarity on both sides of the Atlantic River. We continue to support the call for the Caribbean to be respected as a zone of peace. And more than simply making proclamations, we have to engage all of our so-called international friends and partners and put them under pressure to publicly express their support. We have to put them under the pressure because the world is not just Ukraine. People in Venezuela, fishermen in Trinidad, they bleed the same red blood as Ukrainians. And therefore, we must not allow our so-called friends and partners to get away with hypocrisy and double standards. Comrades, the world is before us. The opportunities are there. The threats are real. The only way, the only hope we have of confronting the threats and the challenges and coming out stronger is by banding together, by offering each other our strengths and our solidarity, and by ensuring that through unity we march forward together. Viva ALBA! Thank you.
Bueno, muchas gracias, querido compañero Joseph.
Thank you very much, dear comrade Joseph Andel. Very strong remarks from the hearts and the roots of our great Caribbean. And where is the Caribbean looking? To the great Africa, to our mother Africa. That's where we come from. We have the great Caribbean with a great mother that is Africa. And our vision is deep of rebelliousness, of struggle, and always of progress and victory. The one who fights has a right to victory. Only those who fight have a right to victory. And it is a threat with a supremacist vision that intends to impose a model to colonize all of our space, our vital space. It is our land, it is our sea, our rivers, our mountains, it is our people and our history of Latin America and the Caribbean. We have earned the right to walk our own path. Latin America and the Caribbean is not a threat to anyone in the north. On the contrary, it is hope, because our workers, our migrants, are those who are producing on the fields, in their industries, in their services. So these are only pretexts that become fake news, right? They have been called many things, but since we are at the time of social media, Joseph, they call it fake news. The fake news of the empire to find these pretexts about Venezuela. And they have told at least 4 lies about us. First, that we opened up the asylums and that we sold off the mentally insane to the United States. That is fake. We have 4 great mental institutions in our country which work with an open door methodology and therapy. And we deeply respect the human being, especially those which have any mental health issues. They deserve much respect. They may have schizophrenia, they may have dementia. So all of them deserve respect, humane treatment with new technologies. The second lie is that Venezuela sent all the migrants to the United States. The actual truth is that the sanctions against Venezuela put us in a situation in which 99% of our income were lost, and more or less 4 million Venezuelans had to migrate to Venezuela, Ecuador, Peru, Chile. And then the far right itself, and this is already in the evidence that we have given to the US administration, to Joe Biden and to Donald Trump, the far right itself, with the business of trafficking of persons, they were gathering millions and thousands of dollars and took those migrants from Peru, Chile, and Colombia to the United States. And the far right is an ally of the current administration. And I can give you names. Juan Guaido, who wanted to become the president of Venezuela. Do you remember him? He did the same as Walker, Commander Ortega. He was self-appointed as president of Venezuela, endorsed by the current administration. He was behind person trafficking. Leopoldo López, a CIA agent. Carlos Vecchio, David Smolansky, Julio Borges, who lives in Spain as a king, and Maria Machado, who is the new Guaido. He's Guaido 2.0. She wants to come back in a warship and to become the president of Venezuela. They are a mafia, and they earned money from people trafficking. So now we are recovering our economy. The economy is growing. And from those millions of migrants who left, almost half of them have returned, and we have a program for the return of migrants. And I hope it will continue to work for several weeks, months, and years, because I want to bring back all of Venezuelan migrants back to their homes so that they can produce in Venezuela, create in Venezuela. So that was the second fake news. The third lie, that we sent a criminal gang that we defeated here in Venezuela with law. They say that we sent this criminal gang to the American cities, and this is fake. There are some experts, some criminologists from the United States. They sent a report to us that states that the crimes committed by Venezuelans in the United States are not even 0.001% of the crimes that are committed in the country. They are completely irrelevant in the internal criminal life of the US, which is very violent. You know, there are murders every single day, kidnapping, assaults, drug trafficking, gangs. They don't recognize that they have drug cartels, but there is a huge amount of drugs that is consumed in the US, and it is illegally distributed on the streets, and all that money stays in the country. So that is the third lie, another fake news, the Tren de Aragua news. And we can dispute this to anyone face to face. And the fourth lie, the most vulgar one, is the drug trafficking lie. This is said by the DEA report of the European Union, of the United Nations, of the Customs World Organization. Venezuela is an irrelevant country in terms of drug and drug trafficking terms. This is recognized by the whole world, a successful model of war against drug trafficking, even though we have 2,200 kilometers of border with Colombia, which is the main producer of cocaine in the world, our sister nation, Colombia. And who imposed in Colombia the production of cocaine? The oligarchy that is an ally of the United States, Álvaro Uribe Vélez, the lieutenants of Pablo Escobar Gaviria, the main ally of the United States. Iván Duque, main ally of the United States. Andrés Pastrana, all of them imposed that model. Then Gustavo Petro arrived to power. He is building a new model, and he is defeating drug trafficking in Colombia. Venezuela, well, where is the cocaine that goes to the States? You can look for that cocaine in Ecuador. Talk to Daniel Noboa and to his companies that send 70% of the cocaine that is produced in Colombia, Peru, and Bolivia. They send them from the private ports of the Noboa family in Ecuador. I do not fear. I am not offended by the truth. So that is the fourth fake news, drug trafficking. So Joseph is right when he says that they're looking for pretexts to recolonize our America. But if they have fake news, if they have pretexts to recolonize us, we have great truths that we defend, and victory has been, is, and will be ours. And with our truth and our unity and our love, will prevail in the path of peace. with the embrace of Latin America and the Caribbean. Now, forgive me, please, I got very inspired, but that speech was also very inspiring. Now we have from St. Kitts and Nevis. We were there once in the summit of Petro-Caribe. Unforgettable. We have the Minister of Foreign Affairs, International Trade, Industry and Trade, Consumer Affairs and Economic Development and Investment. Denzil Douglas, you have the floor.
Sí, parece que la imagen se congeló.
Apparently the image is frozen. We are going to reconnect and we are going to give the floor now to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Foreign Trade, Foreign Investment and Diaspora Affairs from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dwight Fitzgerald Bramble. Is that right? You have the floor. Congratulations for the great victory.
Muchísimas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Excellencies, heads of state and government of ALBA, ministers, colleague ministers of foreign affairs, vice ministers, ambassadors, and national coordinators, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. At the outset, permit me in my capacity as the newest foreign minister within the ALBA family to extend warmest commendations to you, excellencies, presidents and prime ministers, and esteemed colleagues foreign ministers. I bring special greetings from the Honorable Dr. Godwin Friday, Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, who was elected on November 27, 2025, with an overwhelming mandate, the second largest mandate in our country's political history, from the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines as the 5th Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Prime Minister Friday unavoidably cannot be here with us today to attend this important summit. But however, he extends his best wishes of success for today's important summit. The Honorable Prime Minister also expresses his sincere appreciation to members of ALBA for their congratulatory messages following his victory in the general elections, and expresses his government's commitment to deepening and strengthening the process of integration and unity in Latin America and the Caribbean. Excellencies, distinguished ministers, the foundation stone of ALBA allows us to cement the groundwork for cooperation and unity that guides us today. It is therefore incumbent on us to continue to champion, promote, and advance the ideals, purposes, and principles of solidarity, complementarity, cooperation, respect for sovereignty, political independence, territorial integrity, non-interference in the internal affairs of states, and a commitment to democracy and human rights. These sacred principles are enshrined in the United Nations Charter and must be fully adhered by all nations, irrespective of their economic. And the Grenadines values initiatives such as Agro-ALBA and ALBA-Assur, and we look forward to continuing cooperation to ensure the economic growth and development of our countries and the well-being of all our peoples. Indeed, we have shown the world that ALBA has much to offer, particularly in areas such as respect for the environment, racial and ethnic harmony, economic cooperation, tolerance, the importance of solidarity, and the adherence to the fundamental precepts of international law as enshrined in the United Nations Charter. Excellencies, distinguished ministers, in short, we are pleased to take our place among the members attending this meeting today. Our new administration will continue to reflect on our participation in regional and multinational organizations with a view of reaffirming our commitments in the interest of the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We are resolute in our efforts to work with member countries in building and securing the best environment for the development and advancement of national and regional interests and well-being. In view of the special circumstances of our nascent and new administration, the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines will subsequently issue a statement on our participation in this 25th summit of the heads of state and government of ALBA. I thank you.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias.
Thank you
compañero
very
ministro
much,
Dwayne Fitzgerald Bambrett,
dear Dwight Fitzgerald
de
Bramble.
nuestro saludo al nuevo primer
Please
ministro
convey our
Godwin
greetings to the new Prime Minister, Godwin Friday,
y a nuestro querido
and to our beloved people
I
of
will
St.
do,
Vincent and the
this
Grenadines.
lo quere-
I will convey those best wishes. Thank you very much.
Tenemos gran cariño, gran afecto.
We have great affection
Cuentan con todo el respaldo
for all of you,
nuestra-
and you have
para
all
seguir
of
avanzando
our support
en una gran
to
hermandad
continue to
caribeña.
move forward in a great
Hermandad para el desarrollo,
fraternity of the
el
Caribbean.
desarrollo la base
Fraternity
de
for
la paz.
development, and
Estamos llegando
development is
ya
the foundation of
al
peace.
final
Well, we are
de
now
intervenciones,
reaching the conclusion of
problemas con la
all of our
conexión
interventions. We had some problems with
hacia
our
St.
connection
Kitts and Nevis.
with St. Kitts and
Bien,
Nevis.
la conocemos muy bien, la queremos
We
mucho.
know that nation very well.
Y
We love it very
esta
much.
cumbre de los 21 años
This summit
de
commemorates
fundación
the
en
21st
Habana,
anniversary of the foundation in
territorio libre de
Havana,
América,
Cuba, Free Territory of
el
America,
14 de diciembre
on
del
December
año
14,
2004, cuando se
2004,
cumplían 10 años
when we
de
were
aquel abrazo, del primer encuentro
commemorating
entre
10
Fidel
years
y
after that
Chávez,
embrace, after the first
que
encounter
refundó
between
la
Fidel and
historia
Chavez,
de la
that
cooperación, la hermandad
refounded the
y la unión
history of
de los
cooperation,
pueblos de nuestro
fraternity, and
continente
unity of the peoples of our
latinoamericano y
Latin
caribeño.
America and Caribbean continents.
Hoy el ALBA arranca con
Today,
fuerza
ALBA
en todos nuestros países, en
starts
toda nuestra América,
strongly in each of
la
our countries,
conmemoración de los 100
all
años
across
de
America,
Fidel.
with the commemoration
Fidel,
of the centennial
fuerza,
of Fidel.
adelante, Fidel, espíritu, Fidel,
Strength, the strength
inspiración,
of Fidel, the
Fidel,
inspiration of Fidel,
verdad
the truth of
eterna,
Fidel,
verdad
eternal
eterna. Fidel,
truth.
Fidel, Fidel. Así que bueno, tengo aquí precisamente ya la declaración
I already have the final
consensuada
declaration
de
that has been
la 25
agreed
cumbre de
upon
jefes
of
de
the
Estado y de
25th
Gobierno
Summit
del
of
ALBA.
Heads of State
Caracas,
and
14
Government
de
of ALBA,
diciembre
Caracas, December
2025,
14, 2025.
hacia la conmemoración del centenario del
Toward the
natalicio del
commemoration of the
comandante en jefe
centennial of the
Fidel
birth
Castro Ruz.
of Commander-in-Chief Fidel Castro
Nada
Ruz.
podrá detener el curso de la
Nothing will
historia.
be able to stop the course of history.
Nosotros, jefes de Estado y de
We,
Gobierno
heads of state and
del
government
ALBA,
of
reunidos
ALBA,
el 14 de diciembre de
gathered on
2025,
December 14,
inspirados
2025,
en el ejemplo de dignidad
inspired
revolucionaria
of the
e
example
inquebrantable
of
defensa de la
revolutionary
soberanía
dignity and
del
unwavering defense of
comandante en jefe Fidel
sovereignty
Castro Ruz en
of
el marco de la
Commander-in-Chief
conmemoración de su
Fidel Castro
centenario
Ruz within the
en
framework of the
2026,
commemoration of his
la
centennial in
víspera del bicentenario del
2026,
Congreso
the
Anfictiónico
eve
de Panamá
of the
en
commemoration of the Anfictionic Congress
1826,
of Panama,
en el contexto de crecientes amenazas a
and
la
in the
paz y la
context
estabilidad
of
de
growing
América Latina
threats
y
to
el
peace and
Caribe,
stability in Latin
declaramos:
America and the
1.
Caribbean, we
Honramos la
declare
historia y el
first
legado del comandante
We honor the history and legacy of Commander-in-Chief Fidel Castro Ruz, founding precursor of the organization, together with Bolivarian leader Hugo Chavez Frias and great articulator of José Martí's dreams for the Cuban, Latin American, and Caribbean peoples. Second, we reaffirm our unwavering commitment to continue deepening the Bolivarian doctrine, a philosophy and course of action incompatible with all forms of hegemony, domination, or imperial tutelage, which constitutes the fundamental pillar that inspired Commanders Fidel and Chavez to found 21 years ago this alliance as an expression of the historic, deeply humanist and anti-imperialist project that unites the peoples of our America. Third, we condemn in the strongest terms the stated purpose of the recently published National Security Strategy of the United States aimed at reaffirming and enforcing the obsolete and historically defeated Monroe Doctrine. Fourth, we condemn the acts of piracy committed by the United States government in illegally assaulting and confiscating a Venezuelan oil tanker in the Caribbean Sea. This act violates international law and attacks the sovereignty of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. Fifth, we salute the Venezuelan people who, conscious of their historical strength, have once again demonstrated profound resilience in the face of adversity and have courageously and conscientiously defeated their dignity and their right to decide their own destiny. Sixth, we demand the exclusion of Cuba from the arbitrary and spurious list of countries allegedly sponsoring terrorism, which is drawn by the State Department of the United States. Seventh, we highlight the efforts and achievements of the Government of National Reconciliation of Nicaragua in building a sovereign economy intertwined with struggling peoples and countries with respectful sovereign powers, which is becoming a reality thanks to the courage and formidable hard work of the revolutionary and evolutionary people of Nicaragua that is increasingly free, increasingly Christian, increasingly socialist, and increasingly united. Eighth, we demand the immediate cessation of all military threats against any country of our America and reiterate the full validity of the proclamation of Latin America and the Caribbean as a zone of peace, approved at the second CELAC summit in Havana, Cuba in January 2014. Ninth, we reaffirm our commitment to defending the rights of migrants, regardless of nationality, culture, race, or gender. And we demand compliance with protocols for safe, orderly, regular, and respectful repatriation in accordance with bilateral or multilateral agreements and the national laws of our countries. 10th, we recognize the progress made by the Agro-ALBA and ALBA-Azul programs, aimed at increasing the levels of food and productive sovereignty of our peoples. Their implementation has shown significant results. This is said by the declaration, and I think we still have a lot of work to do. I don't want to write this in the declaration, but just a side comment in Radio ALBA. We have a long way to go, but it is the right path. 11th, we celebrate the start of operations of the Manuel Gual ship, the ALBA ship, as part of the implementation of the ALBA Strategic Agenda 2030. It is a fundamental tool for cooperation and the promotion of fair trade and an invaluable resource at the service of the peoples of our America. Another side comment of Radio ALBA. It has been essential to support our sister nation, Cuba, to face the terrible effects of the hurricane that recently affected the eastern part of the island. 12, we approve the 2026 action plan aimed at achieving the objectives set out in the ALBA Strategic Agenda 2030. In this regard, we reiterate our commitment to work on the productive expansion of the Agro-ALBA and ALBA Azul projects for joint agricultural, fishing, and aquaculture production, and to strengthen the logistical chains of the ALBA chip with the first business roundtable and the 12th Economic Complementation Council. At the same time, ALBA will activate new permanent mechanisms for social, political, and cultural cooperation to strengthen the bloc's cohesion. This includes the creation of the communal training circuits for the exchange of knowledge and leadership, and the formalization of the humanitarian task force for coordinated disaster response. This is a great idea that we can activate immediately. The calendar will include important events, such as the 6th Sports Games, the International Tourism Fair, the 2 Political Council of ALBA, in addition to expanding the offer of scientific scholarships with special emphasis on artificial intelligence. These multidisciplinary actions seek to make decisive progress toward the objectives of the 2030 strategic agenda. 13, it is vital, this proposal that has been already approved. We approve the creation of the International Energy and Electricity Mission, made up of ALBA countries and other countries of the region and outside the region, with the intention of supporting the sister Republic of Cuba in the total restoration of electrical energy in this country. So we create the International Mission of Energy and Electricity for special support for Cuba.
And the statement, its declaration, concludes after a very good debate, a good doctrinal debate, saying today, when military threats from imperialism loom over the region, the ALBA countries reaffirm that our destiny is linked to the emancipatory thinking and legacy of the Simon Bolivar libertarian struggle, the unyielding anti-imperialism of Augusto César Sandino, José Martí's sense of our American identity, the indigenous rebellion of Tupac Katari, and the fortitude of Juana Azurduy de Padilla, the sovereignist leadership of Edward Leblanc, the commitment to independence of Sir Vere Cornwall Bird, the ancestral resistance of Joseph Chatoyer, the popular impulse of Robert Rothschild, the popular project of Maurice Bishop, and the struggle for national dignity of Jean-Baptiste Bidot. This common heritage is the foundation of the Bolivarian doctrine as a historical synthesis of the peoples fighting for their second and definitive independence. We declare that our determination to fight for our dreams, for their dreams, and for the protection of the region remains intact, with the deep conviction that, established by Simon Bolivar, and I quote, "Peace will be my harbor, my glory, my reward, my hope, my joy, and all that is precious in the world." December 14th, 2025, the historical summit of the 21st anniversary of ALBA-TCP grouping, and it's been approved with the traditional sign. Excellent. Unity, 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 and activation, permanent activation. Permanent victory. Long live the Bolivarian Alliance of our peoples. Long live unity and perpetual peace of our peoples. To victory forever. We will prevail. Thank you very much.